to bring to you the region's heartbeat.
On South Asia Diary, you will hear voices from the world's most underreported region. We will talk culture, we will talk politics, we will talk creative innovations.
This is South Asia, home to 1.9 billion people. And this is South Asia Diary with me, Mariam Wardak. Every Monday, 8:30 p.m. IST on WION World is One.
From the world's most volatile region, conflicts over faith and boundaries. Stories of death, destruction, despair, and hope. WION brings you to the heart of the action. Incisive analysis, unrivaled perspective, and exclusive ground reports. Watch West Asia Post every Friday, 8:30 p.m. IST with me, Ghadi Francis, only on WION World is One.
Good evening and welcome to Gravitas. I'm Palki Sharma Upadhyay. Let's get started.
Gravitas, presented by Amity University, ranked amongst the top 3% universities globally. Co-powered by Star Health Insurance, the health insurance specialist.
If Facebook were a country, it would be bigger than China. And on this show, we've told you in detail about China's expansionism and aggression. Tonight, let's focus on Facebook's aggression. It's on a war path with governments. At least 7 countries are actively considering initiating action against Facebook. Australia introduced a new law that Facebook did not like, so it turned off the news switch in Australia. Facebook is also pushing its controversial privacy policy on WhatsApp all over again. The Prime Minister of Australia says he's discussed Facebook with world leaders, including India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi. It is challenging governments and resisting legislation the world over. The Supreme Court of India has pulled up Facebook. The case is still on. What gives one social media company the power to take on so many governments? You and I, the users of Facebook. It uses our data to earn big money. On Gravitas tonight, we tell you how there's now a global effort to regulate this tech giant and what alternatives do we have as users. Also on the show, 8 months after the Galwan clash, China admits it suffered casualties but says only 4 soldiers died. New propaganda video shows India as the aggressor. The ground reality of Kashmir is a far cry from what United Nations reports portray: 2 terror attacks in 3 days in broad daylight. Climate change is real, and it is a real and present danger. It is snowing in the deserts of Saudi Arabia, and the US. Texas is frozen and out of power. And is Japan setting new standards in community intolerance? It has a website that maps neighborhoods with quote-unquote noisy children. We begin as always with Gravitas Global Headlines.
A 20-year-old woman who was shot in the head last week during an anti-coup protest in Myanmar's capital, Naypyidaw, has died, becoming the first official death from the anti-coup movement since the military seized power from Aung San Suu Kyi. This as global pressure against Myanmar's generals was swelling after Britain and Canada imposed targeted sanctions, though the military seems determined to oppose their coup. Thai Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha will face a vote of no confidence from Thailand's parliament on Saturday. This as Chan-o-cha faces backlash from a coronavirus-hit economy as well as his handling of anti-government protests that have rocked the country. Analysts believe that Prayut is expected to survive the vote.
Touchdown confirmed. Perseverance safely.
The American Space Agency has successfully landed its Perseverance rover in a deep crater near the planet's equator called Jezero. Engineers at NASA's Mission Control in California erupted with joy soon after the confirmation of touchdown. The 6-wheeled vehicle will now spend at least the next 2 years drilling into the local rocks looking for evidence of past life. Sri Lanka will purchase 10 million doses of Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine from India. In January, under India's Neighbourhood First policy, Sri Lanka received 500,000 doses of free vaccines. Gunfire rang out of Mogadishu as the opposition tried to march against delayed elections in Somali capital, where roads have been sealed off and security deployed over planned protest. Huawei is turning to technology for pig farmers as it deals with tough sanctions on its smartphones. The Chinese telecoms giant was stopped from accessing vital components after the Trump administration labeled it a threat to U.S. national security. Uber has said that it would respect a UK Supreme Court decision that a group of drivers should be classed as employees and not contractors following a lengthy legal battle over working conditions. Only 3 of 45 short-finned pilot whales survived the mass standing in shallow waters on Indonesia's Madura Island off the northeastern coast of Java. The 3 whales were pushed back to the sea by volunteers and local authorities along the Modung beach in East Java province. Russia's Daniil Medvedev is through to his first Australian Open after producing a masterclass to beat Greek Stefanos Tsitsipas in straight sets. The 4th-seeded Medvedev hit 46 winners, made just 21 unforced errors, and broke his opponent's serve 5 times to storm to a 6-4, 6-2, 7-5 win in just over 2 hours. He has extended his winning streak to 20 matches and will face world number 1 Novak Djokovic in Sunday's title clash. LeBron James and Kevin Durant have been picked as captains for the March 7th NBA All-Star Game in Atlanta. James has been joined by Denver's Nikola Jokic and Clapper's Kawhi Leonard as West front court starters, alongside guards Stephen Curry and Luka Doncic. Milwaukee's Gianni Antetokounmpo and Philadelphia's Joel Embiid are the East front court picks, while Washington's Bradley Beal and Brooklyn's Kyrie Irving are the starting guards.
Facebook is on a collision course with governments around the world. At last count, at least 7 governments were to initiate action against Facebook. The case of Australia is, of course, the biggest. The government wanted Facebook to pay publishers for news content in Australia. Facebook refused. Instead of paying for news, it removed news from its platforms. So if you're in Australia, you cannot share news on Facebook or Instagram anymore. Facebook has banned it. Now it has turned its attention to WhatsApp, a platform it owns. The same controversial privacy policies back. You might remember this prompt. This was WhatsApp asking you to accept the new rules or delete the app. There was a massive backlash. We reported it on the show. The policy was put on hold. Then it landed up in court. Now Facebook is trying to push it again. You will start seeing these prompts again. They'll be asking you to accept the policy. This time, they will look different. According to a report, here is what they could look like. There are two screens with a big accept button. There is no option to reject. The first one says WhatsApp is not reading or listening to your private conversations. But the rules are a little different when you decide to talk to a business. And this is the tricky part. WhatsApp will let you send messages to businesses, but they won't get the same level of privacy. What does that mean? Say you buy something on WhatsApp, pay a bill, or complain about a product or service. These messages or exchanges can potentially be monetized. They will not be treated as private conversations. Why does Facebook/WhatsApp want to read such messages? Because they stand to make money, and a lot of it. Data in business messages can be used to target ads on Facebook. Some of this data can also be stored on the servers of Facebook. What does that mean for you? Facebook will read your shopping preferences and it will send you targeted ads. But the company says users now have a choice. You can choose not to use WhatsApp for business. The deadline this time is 15th May. You'll have to accept the terms or delete the app. It won't be easy. Facebook and WhatsApp are now a part of our life. People around the world are addicted to these platforms. In countries like India, WhatsApp is the default messaging app. It's how people talk to each other. But those millions of users are in no position to dictate the rules of the game. Facebook decides and Facebook dictates. It collects what you share on the platform, and now it even decides what remains on the platform. Yesterday, as we told you, it flipped the switch on news, and Australia's news industry went dark. Why? Because Facebook did not like the rules that the Australian government had set for big tech. Now, with the same brazenness, it is pushing WhatsApp's new privacy policies again. It won't be easy this time, though. The new rules have been challenged in Indian courts. 4 days back, India's Supreme Court issued a notice to WhatsApp and the central government. The top court made a scathing remark on Facebook. Let me quote what it said. You may be a $2 to $3 trillion company, but people's privacy is more valuable for them. It's our duty to protect their privacy. That's what the Supreme Court of India said to Facebook. Even the ban in Australia could boomerang. There is a growing clamour to make Facebook pay for news in at least 7 countries. In the United States, the News Media Alliance has thrown its weight behind a bill. It's called the Journalism Competition and Preservation Act. This bill will allow publishers to negotiate payment from online platforms. Microsoft has jumped into this conversation. Its president, Brad Smith, has called on US lawmakers to introduce their own version of the Australian law. Canada is one step ahead. A Canadian minister has promised to introduce a law to force tech giants to pay. The European Union is ready to follow Australia's lead. In the United Kingdom, a government task force has endorsed the idea. France already has a law in place. Initially, both Google and Facebook refused to pay the French media, but recently, Google has signed a $76 million deal with several French news outlets. And Spain was perhaps the first to bring in what is called a Google tax. In response, Google shut down its news feature in Spain. With the European Union ready to take the plunge now, it's only a matter of time before Facebook faces similar payment demands from Spain as well. Germany has been mulling some tough proposals. In 2016, the German government suggested that Facebook should pay $500,000 for every fake news post. In 2019, 4 major publishing houses joined hands to force big tech to pay. The number of governments cracking the whip on big tech is growing by the day. World leaders are seriously considering stringent policies. Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison appeared before the media to defend the new law. He said he had discussed Facebook with at least 4 leaders. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, French President Emmanuel Macron, and the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson. He wrapped up by saying, and I'm quoting again, "They're already going down this path." Like I said before, it's only a matter of time. Facebook will face the music in every country until it decides to mend its ways and stops bullying users and governments. That said, we must also understand how powerful this company is. Facebook has existed for 16 years. It was born in a dorm room at Harvard to connect college students and has evolved into the biggest social media network in the world. Facebook has driven revolutions. It has also fueled anarchy, unrest, and election fraud. And each time, it has gotten away with it. Why and how? Our next report explores.
Facebook has existed for 16 long years. It started as a website for poking acquaintances. It has now become one of the most powerful engines of communication in the world. 22% of the global population is on Facebook. Out of this, 1.85 billion are daily active users, 2.8 billion are monthly active users. Facebook is the third most visited website in the world, and the fourth most valuable brand in the world. It operates in over 190 countries, and in 111 different languages. If Facebook were a country, it would be substantially bigger than China, and this tech giant is by all means more powerful than most countries. Some of the biggest revolutions in the world have gained strength because of Facebook. The Arab Spring in West Asia, the Euromaidan revolution in Ukraine, even the ongoing protests in Myanmar. Facebook has also helped politicians seize power. In the 2016 US election, the Trump campaign sent out 50,000 different messages in a day, tweaking each one depending on how people reacted. The rest, as you know, is history. Andrew Bosworth, a close friend of Mark Zuckerberg, once claimed that the company was responsible for Trump getting elected. Closer to home, the Cambridge Analytica scandal served as a reminder of Facebook's power. The data of at least 87 million Facebook users was harvested without consent and then used to influence their voting behavior. Now, Facebook has banned news in Australia, yet another reminder of its power and monopoly. But how does this tech giant get away with such scandals and misuse of power? Much of it has to do with how the internet works. It is not controlled by anyone. There are not many consequences for the decisions of tech giants. No concrete punitive action in case of blunders, no accountability for their decisions, and no system of keeping a check on their political biases. In the last few years, Facebook, along with Twitter and Google, has been subjected to several grillings by the US Congress over its unchecked power. Each time, American lawmakers promised to restrict the power of Facebook, but there has been little action. Bureau Report, WION. World is One.
It all comes down to one question. Do we have an alternative? Since Facebook is not mending its ways, should we all just log out of it, delete our accounts? Can we do it? Is it even possible? Many of our apps are linked to it. We chat with our friends on Facebook. We interact with our interest groups on Facebook. We share our life events, achievements, memories on Facebook. We even share job openings on this platform. Take a moment and think about it. Can you do without platforms like Facebook? Can you do without WhatsApp? And why just these two? Can you do without such big tech companies in your life? The millennials might think it impossible. Those older would say there was a time when there was no social media in life and life went on just fine. But we can't go back to that age. And why should we? It's not like we're riding camels because cars pollute. We have to look for better alternatives, create them, support them. We have to ensure they're not just good, but also safe. Perhaps local platforms that do not pry on our private lives. You may say a local platform will limit your connections, not give you the same user experience, and you'll be right. Facebook has nearly 3 billion users, almost 32% of the world's population. A local platform is unlikely to have even a fraction of it. But do we really need an exhaustive friend list? Have you heard of the Dunbar number? 150 is the Dunbar number. It is said that we can only maintain around 150 connections at once. There are 5 people in your tightest circle. You have 15 good friends, 50 friends, and 150 meaningful contacts. British anthropologist Robin Dunbar came up with this theory. The researchers he influenced say the magic number 150 remains true even today in the age of social media. They say the moment your network exceeds 150, it is unlikely to last long or cohere well. It will not bind. Moral of the story, local platforms with not so overwhelming number of users are and can be alternatives. Of late, we've heard of some local platforms in India. What role should governments play in their promotion? Should they limit themselves to legislation, or should they actively endorse local players over foreign companies? We say what government should do is create awareness and let people choose. Government should legislate and regulate, talk to people about the importance of safeguarding their data, educate them about how data is misused, how tech monopolies can be dangerous. Governments can encourage local tech companies, perhaps even provide them grants for innovations, but start all this by talking about the problem. You know, in India, when WhatsApp announced its privacy policy, many people, in fact, most people, did not realize what the fuss was all about. They said we have nothing to hide. And it's not their fault. No one ever spoke to them about data sensitivity. What we need today is digital education. And while we discuss all of this, while we try and find alternatives and solutions, while 7 countries try to hold big tech accountable, there is one country that may be having the last laugh. Who do you think I'm referring to? China, unfortunately. It has banned Facebook and all major Western tech platforms. China has its own firewall. With big tech becoming a menace, this model, the China model, may be becoming attractive to some countries. It's part of a pattern, you know. It's just like how every time democracy is under threat, when events like Capitol Hill happen, China gets to showcase its model of governance as the more effective one. There is no way Beijing will not try to sell its digital model too. It's more profitable than selling dictatorship, by the way. Why do I say this? Because China wants to stay ahead of the curve in the 5G race. If it manages to export its firewall, set standards around it, it can make money from patents. Technology is integral to China's dream of digital dominance. That is the next battleground. Big tech, with all its nuisance, may be bringing that dream to life. It is creating a mess in our countries and giving China a chance to have the last laugh. Think about it. And since we're on the subject, China made a confession today. One that we honestly were not expecting. It admitted to suffering casualties in the Galwan clash. China says it lost just 4 soldiers in the clashes last year with India. No word on how many were injured. Beijing followed up this report with a wave of propaganda against India. Our next report tells you how China's claims are not adding up.
Since the clashes in Galwan, the world has speculated on China's casualties. Different estimates have made headlines. An American assessment says at least 35 Chinese troops died. Last week, Russian news agency TASS claimed 45 Chinese servicemen died. On Friday, Beijing finally chose to share a number. 8 months after the clashes in Galwan, China says only 4 of its soldiers died. Chen Hongjun, Chen Xiangrong, Xiao Siwan, and Wang Zuoran. The numbers don't add up. China's state mouthpiece, the Global Times, put out a lengthy story. It suggests 4 soldiers died, but makes no mention of how many PLA soldiers were hurt. Reports say Indian officers counted around 60 Chinese soldiers being carried on stretchers after the clash. Why did Beijing take so long in giving a number? And why does it still appear to be hiding the truth? Last year in July, the South China Morning Post had published some insights. It had reported how China remains sensitive about military casualties, and how the numbers had to be approved by Chinese President Xi Jinping himself before they are released. China's claims come just ahead of the 10th round of military-level talks with India on Saturday. Both sides will meet to discuss de-escalation from other friction areas. Just ahead of the planned talks, the Chinese state media has begun spreading propaganda. It is trying to paint India as the aggressor. A video was circulated by the Global Times. It calls Indian soldiers foreign military. In its daily press conference, China's foreign ministry amplified the narrative of Global Times with this story.
戍边英雄官兵的事迹给了我们心灵很大的震动。比如说陈红军烈士，还有4个多月就要做爸爸了。另外还有肖思远烈士，他一直憧憬着要娶上他心爱的姑娘，但是很可惜，他们没有能够等到这一天，而把生命和青春永远的留在了高原。为了捍卫国家的领土主权，维护边境地区的安宁，献出了生命。我读到他们有战士在日记里写道：“清澈的爱只为中国”，真的是非常的感动。我想我们今天的和平来之不易，每一位英雄烈士都值得怀念。
Those words lead us to only one question. If China really respects its martyrs, why did it wait for 8 months to speak about them? Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Coming to India now, there was a terror attack in the capital of Jammu and Kashmir. A police convoy was targeted by terrorists in Srinagar. The attack took place in the Barzula area of the city, in fact. The Resistance Front, or TRF, has claimed responsibility for this attack. This is a shadow group of the Lashkar-e-Toiba. It has an active online presence. It actively supported by Pakistan. And it has been trying to attract international attention with similar attacks in recent days. Some CCTV footage has emerged from the attack site. It shows a TRF terrorist opening fire at policemen. 2 of the officers were wounded. They later succumbed to their injuries. Their names are Mohammad Yusuf and Suhail Ahmed. Both were constables in the Jammu and Kashmir police. Our correspondent Ishan Wani has been reporting on the story. He sent us this report.
Within 72 hours, another attack in Srinagar city, and police have claimed earlier that they had arrested 3 men who attacked the Krishna Dhaba owner's son in Srinagar during the envoy's visit. But today, yet again, soon after the press conference, there was a news about 2 cops being shot who later have now succumbed to their injuries. Now, this is a highly secured area which is known as Bagat, and this route also leads to the airport. So given the sensitivity of this attack, forces have launched an operation in the area. They're trying to search if the attackers are in this particular place. We are told that a police assistant sub-inspector is among those who have now succumbed to their injuries. But police, on being asked that what are they doing, taking precautions as the strikes have now, these attacks have now increased. Police says that they will have to check their strategies, and they are trying to stop these attacks in Srinagar. With camera person Feroz Ishanwani for WION World is One.
Meanwhile, just 14 kilometers away from Srinagar in Budgam, another encounter took place. 1 policeman was killed. His name was Constable Altaf Ahmed. Another constable has been injured. Name Mansoor Ahmed. 52 kilometers away from Budgam in Shopian, terrorists from Al-Badr opened fire on a joint search party of the Indian security forces. An encounter began. At least 3 terrorists were gunned down. And we are not done with the attacks yet. Kashmir has been witnessing a spate of terror attacks. Earlier this week, a hotel worker was injured in a terror attack in Srinagar. A group called the Muslim Jambaz Force claimed responsibility for this attack. Islamic terror continues to pose a threat to Kashmir's security, and that is a fact. But some global bodies only filter what's happening through their lens of prejudice. Bodies like the UNHCR, the United Nations Human Rights Council, recently 2 experts at this body expressed concern about India's decision to abrogate Article 370. Their names are Fernand de Varnes, the Special Rapporteur on Minority Issues, and Ahmad Shahid, the Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Religion or Belief. Mr. Shahid also happens to be the former Foreign Minister of the Maldives. Now, these gentlemen have connected New Delhi's policy on Kashmir with the status of religious minorities, saying that they could face discrimination in employment and land ownership. What's worse is that these remarks came less than 24 hours after a delegation of 24 envoys, foreign envoys, wrapped up their 2-day visit to Jammu and Kashmir. New Delhi has issued a strong response, calling the statement deplorable. Allow me to quote, "It is deplorable that the SRs, after sharing their questionnaire on February 10th, did not even wait for our response. Instead, they chose to release their inaccurate assumptions to the media. The press release has also been deliberately timed to coincide with the visit of a group of ambassadors to Jammu and Kashmir." It certainly was. The UNHRC has always had a lot to say about India's national security measures in Kashmir. But where is this concern when there's a terror attack in the valley? What happens to the human rights of the policemen and security officials who are killed in these terror attacks? These international bodies undermine their credibility every time they expose how disconnected they are from the ground reality and how biased their assessment is. At the same time, and this is something that we've said before on the show, India must stop seeking certificates of validation on Kashmir from foreign envoys. Why give them the power to sit in judgment in the first place? Let's turn to West Asia, a region known for its dry and hot weather. It has now been blanketed by snow. There's been a huge dip in mercury, allowing polar air from the Arctic to reach this region. The scenes are surreal. For some, it's a cause of celebration, but the snow has also disrupted daily life in many places. As I speak, it's snowing in Libya, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Israel, Palestine, and parts of Saudi Arabia. Can you believe it? If you can't, then look at this. Let's show you the images from Saudi Arabia. These are camels caught in a blizzard in the city of Tabuk in Saudi Arabia. The video has gone viral. Snowfall is not uncommon in the city of Tabuk, but the scale this time has surprised many. Jordanians are surprised too. These are the images from Jordan. They're from Jordan's capital, Amman. It's covered in at least 8 inches of snow. The locals are delighted. The authorities are not. The snowfall has disrupted traffic, postponed Wuhan virus vaccination programs, even exams at some universities.
It is a great feeling. I can't describe it. We've been waiting for this for a long time. We haven't seen the snow in the last 5 to 6 years, especially in Amman's heights.
It's the same situation in Syria. Snow has covered the rooftops of many houses. On your screen are visuals from Al-Mauza, a town in the rebel-held Idlib province. The Syrian Civil Defense Forces, also known as the White Helmets, have been called to reopen snow-covered roads. Right next door in Israel, it's snowing in Jerusalem. The first snowfall in 6 years. In some places, there's at least 10 inches of snow. In fact, on the 18th of February, the city witnessed its coldest night of the year. But that did not stop people from praying at the Western Wall in Jerusalem. Several Jewish faithfuls were seen praying while others sang and danced as the snow fell. Then we come to Lebanon, blanketed by snow. Thursday was the coldest day of the year in this country. Some villages here are seeing snow for the first time ever. Nearly a dozen roads have been closed. In Libya, the Green Mountain has been blanketed white for the first time in 15 years. The flurry began on Monday. It is expected to last till the weekend. Locals are seeing this weather as an omen, hoping that it will herald a brighter future for their country.
We hope the snowfall will be a good sign for our homeland. by unifying our institutions and unifying our homeland, and for the people to return to one another and love each other. As we see now, the children, people and families that came to this area, the area of Sidi Muhammad Al-Hamri.
A total of 7 countries in West Asia are seeing rare snowfall. And not just this region, from Greece to Texas, snow has reached areas it hadn't in many years. While South Asia and the Southern Hemisphere are bracing for heat waves, these abnormal weather extremes are proof that climate change is real. The United Nations has issued an interesting statement, breaking away from its previous statements, asking leaders to take action. It has said, and I'm quoting, "For too long we've been waging a senseless and suicidal war on nature. The result is 3 interlinked environmental crises that threaten our viability as a species. Human well-being lies in protecting the health of the planet. Without nature's help, we will not thrive or even survive." Every word rings true if you look at images from Texas, a state under snow with no power. A winter storm knocked out power in the entire state, cracked pipes that supply water and killed at least 30 people. More than 2 lakh homes have not had any power. And 7 million people are under orders to boil water before using. This was as of yesterday. Can climate change be blamed for the crisis in Texas? Our next report explores.
The great American state of Texas wasn't ready for this. No electricity and not water for hours. Ice is now hanging from the trees. Pipes are bursting inside homes. This food blogger used a headlamp to cook.
Or something like that. Sorry about the shadow. It's because I have a headlamp on.
While hundreds lined up outside stores for supplies. Millions were out of power, electricity and heat in Texas. All because of this, a brutal blast of winter weather. Winter storm Uri has knocked out Texas. The state is reporting some of its lowest temperatures in the last 3 decades. The water is so cold that even the firefighters are struggling. They didn't have water to put out this massive fire. Water hydrants were frozen.
Our main concern is water supply. All these hydrants out here are dry. They're not dry, they're just frozen, or there's no water.
The brutal cold has numbed even the sea turtles. Thousands of them have washed up on the beaches, frozen. Volunteers have brought them to this convention center to rescue those who have a chance.
Volunteers continue to recover cold-stunned sea turtles, bring them to the South Padre Island Convention Center, but we'll try to slowly warm them up and save as many as we can. This is day 2 of this operation. Over 1,700 turtles have been collected so far. Keep following us to find out the story of the sea turtles here around South Padre Island.
On Sunday, U.S. President Joe Biden declared a state of emergency in Texas. He ordered federal assistance to aid the response efforts. What explains the extreme weather in Texas? Experts are pointing at climate change. Since 2000, weather-related power outages are up by 67% in the United States. And it could get worse. Climate change may fuel hotter heat waves, bitter winter storms, and more ferocious hurricanes in the coming years. What about Texas? Electricity is slowly being restored, but locals are dealing with one crisis after another. From ruptured pipes to frozen water outlets, while they do everything they can to stay warm. Bureau Report, WION. World is One.
Every neighborhood has its imperfections. Noisy children, neighbor's dog that barks at odd hours, lack of parking space. A website developer in Japan has curated a platform highlighting noisy neighborhoods. The purpose is apparently to help people choose what they call peaceful neighborhoods, but the platform is being criticized for fueling intolerance.
children can be noisy. And that's an understatement. Try taking a flight with kids on board. Almost apologetic parents, barely tolerant co-passengers. In a world where patience is wearing thin and personal space is guarded more zealously than gold, here's a new business model that's finding takers. Neighborhoods with no children. In Japan, there's an entire website dedicated to the cause. It's called the Dorozoku Map. First developed in 2016, it highlights the noisiest and most disorderly neighborhoods for those who wish for a quieter world. The neighborhood nuisance map looks something like this. Its purpose is to share points where neighborhood annoyances are repetitive. In this area, people park their cars carelessly. Here, dogs bark too much. And this is where children make a lot of noise. Zoom in and you'll find this. A house where a man sings karaoke every night. Sometimes he invites his friends over.
What I'm to show you.
Here, 2 adults and 1 child litter. And again, in this area, 1 small dog barks for no apparent reason. The more you click, the more area-specific information you can access. The Dorozoku map has identified almost 6,000 spots across Japan where children play on roads. It will also tell you how many of them play at one time and for how long. What is the idea behind this platform? The term Dorozoku was coined on the internet. It means loud folks. The developer says that the problem of Dorozoku qualifies as harassment. This map is not to judge. It is to inform people what a neighborhood offers and what are the calmer options. Isn't sharing such information a violation of privacy? The developer claims that the website does not publish personal information or slanderous messages. Information that can jeopardize an individual's safety is removed. But critics view this platform as a perfect example of rising intolerance. The Dorozoku map is drawing criticism for providing an avenue to angry and dissatisfied residents. While the platform raises the issue of safety for children, it falls short of providing any solution. According to experts, an individual's psychological well-being determines what he or she finds annoying or irritating. When we start blaming children and animals for being too noisy or too playful, when we start removing them from our vicinity, it is time to step back and ask if we are the ones who are proving to be a nuisance. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
This week, one name made a lot of headlines. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. You must have read about her. She's the first woman to become the Director General of the World Trade Organization. Okonjo-Iweala is 66 years old. She was born in Nigeria. She graduated from Harvard, holds a PhD from MIT. She went on to become the first woman finance minister of Nigeria and also the first woman to head the foreign ministry. While serving as Nigeria's foreign minister, kidnappers had taken her mother hostage. They reportedly wanted her to resign from office. Okonjo-Iweala did not. Her mother was released in 5 days. Okonjo-Iweala is also a renowned economist. She spent 25 years in the World Trade Organization and was the first woman to run for its presidency. The Trump administration was against her election. Joe Biden, the current US president, backed her. Today, she's the first woman to head the World Trade Organization. Okonjo-Iweala has made history, and that's reason to cheer. What's not is that she is the exception, not the norm. This very week, another woman from Africa made headlines. Angie Motshekga. She is South Africa's education minister. She said educated men do not rape. After being hit by a storm of rebukes, the minister clarified. Her spokesperson, in fact, spoke to WION and said all that the minister meant was this. She was only trying to motivate students to go to school. Here's something else that happened this week. A video emerged from Brazil. It captured a lawmaker touching a female colleague inappropriately. This man is Fernando Cury, the state deputy of Sao Paulo. Watch this video to see what happened next. This happened on the 16th of December. The video went viral this week. The male lawmaker denies any wrongdoing, but the world can see what he did. He says he did not harass his colleague. All he wanted to do was offer a hug. This man is now being probed for sexual harassment, and rightly so. Also this week, a woman in Australia said that she was raped in the country's parliament. The woman said the incident happened in the office of Australia's Defence Minister in March 2019. The alleged rapist belongs to the party of the Prime Minister of Australia, Scott Morrison. The woman could not file a complaint, she said, because she was scared about the repercussions it would have on her career. Morrison apologised this week. He said that he would ensure that any young woman working in Parliament is as safe as possible. Then something happened in Japan. A woman was elected as the Tokyo 2020 chief, Sieko Hashimoto. She was a minister for Olympics. She has resigned to fill the position of Tokyo 2020 chief after former Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihiro Mori was forced to resign over sexist comments. Remember what he said? Women speak too much at meetings. So to compensate for the blunder, Tokyo 2020 was given a woman chief. But here's what happened next. The country's ruling party floated a proposal. This is the ruling party of Japan. It said that women will be invited to attend key meetings of the party, but there's a clause. These women must not speak. They can only, quote-unquote, look at the kind of discussion and submit their opinion afterwards. Be mute spectators. You see, we're still dictated and dominated by patriarchy. It's everywhere, from grassroots to parliament, and especially on social media. While some women are elected to office, their role is limited to departments like family, children, social affairs, environment, and I'm not undermining any of these sectors. All I'm asking is, why aren't more women heading ministries like foreign affairs, industry, transport, trade? Then there are instances where a lawmaker is judged for the clothes she wears to parliament. This too happened in Brazil, also in India. We live in a world where 37 countries have passport restrictions specific to women. 17 countries restrict women from traveling without permission. In 18 countries, a woman needs her husband's permission to work. How will a woman access her rightful place in public life, fight sexism and patriarchy, if she does not even have the right to make these basic decisions? If she is told to just listen and look and not to speak as a precondition to attend meetings? As we head into the weekend, let this be some food for thought. Up next is Gravitas Images. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on Monday.
WION now available in the United States. Download the app now.
The November election is a crucial test for the country's first democratic government. Myanmar could be
We have completed our terrain relative navigation. Skycam maneuver has started, about 20 meters off the surface. Touchdown confirmed. Perseverance safely on the surface of Mars, ready to begin seeking the sands of past life.
Gravitas, presented by Amity University. Ranked amongst the top 3% universities globally.